Hey EDCI 5380, this is Lauren Swearingen and welcome to my action research proposal for improving reading comprehension for middle school special education students. Reading is one of the most powerful tools a student can possess, not only academically, but for everyday life. When it comes to teaching basic reading skills, most people typically think of an elementary classroom. Yet, there are middle school adolescent students sitting in the classroom who lack those skills and are at a major disadvantage with their peers. When it comes to comprehending a piece of text, students need to familiarize themselves with both the content of the material and possess a general and specific knowledge of the subject matter being read and its vocabulary. My main focus of the action research project I am conducting will focus on middle school students who are in the special education program and how they can overcome the deficit of reading comprehension. Reading and reading comprehension were some things that I struggled with growing up as a student myself. Therefore, my action research project is very near and dear to my heart. Ironically, I am now an English and reading 8th grade middle school teacher, and sadly, I see some of my middle school students, specifically in the special education program, struggling with the same thing. So, the purpose of my study is to learn if middle school students in the special education program believe they struggle with reading comprehension, and to examine and determine what explicit strategies will be an applicable intervention for this population. There are some specific terms I would like to define for you, so as you make your way through my action research proposal, you will be familiarized with these terms. First, special education students. Special education is specifically designed instruction, support, and services provided to students with an identified disability requiring an individually designed instructional program to meet their unique learning needs. Second, reading comprehension. It is a developmental, multi-componential process, the capacity of the mind to perceive and understand, power to grasp ideas, and the ability to know. And lastly, SSR. It is an acronym referring to Silent Sustained Reading, where students read a book of their choice independently for a time period between 10 to 15 minutes. There are 3 pieces of literature I would like to review in my action research proposal that really struck a chord with me in my critical review of literature. The first article is entitled Efficacy of a Reading Intervention for Middle School Students with Learning Disabilities. A specific reading intervention that was taken place and discussed in this article was students who do not achieve a proficient standard on the reading state assessment must be required to complete a reading remediation course. In order to support students who struggle with basic reading skills, schools need to provide a class where these skills can be taught and reinforced for students to become successful readers. I personally have seen this work in my school district. We have a course entitled Reading Lab for students who do not perform well on the state assessment, where they can have this remediation and work on those basic reading school skills with a reading specialist. The only issue or the gap in this review of literature is that not all schools will provide this class, but it is still a great intervention to have to help these students who are struggling with basic reading skills. The second piece of literature I would like to review is an article entitled Building Bridges, a design experiment to improve reading and United States history knowledge of poor readers in 8th grade. This article presented an idea of researchers implementing a DBR, a design-based research in the classroom, focusing on improving a student's reading ability. These researchers implemented 3 reading improvement strategies in specifically the history classroom, which consisted of decoding, vocabulary, and comprehension of expository text. A lot of the literature that I reviewed discussed how important expository text is because middle school students will continue to see this type of literature in their classrooms. But specifically in this article, they wanted to focus on decoding, actually looking at the words that are on the page, specific vocabulary words, and in this article, specifically to the United States history class, and then finally, the overall comprehension. Students in the classroom where these interventions were implemented demonstrated success in reading in all classes. So, in this review, the only gap is it needs to go beyond the United States history class and all teachers in all subject areas need to be implementing decoding, vocabulary, and then overall comprehension for their classroom. The final piece of literature I would like to review is an article entitled Exploring Literacy on the Internet, Reading Comprehension on the Internet, Expanding Our Understanding of Reading Comprehension to Encompass New Literacies. This article represents a new and innovative idea for a student to be able to read and comprehend a text. Exploring Literacy on the Internet is offering the 21st century student and learning environment an alternate way to explore and interact with a piece of text. Electronic texts introduce new supports as well as new challenges that can have a great impact on an individual's ability to comprehend what he or she reads. This new type of text, being able to read on the internet and comprehend a piece of literature on the internet, is very relevant to today, especially to our middle school students. One of the specific reading interventions that the article mentioned was multiple media text. This type of text integrates a range of symbols and multiple media formats, including icons, animated symbols, photographs, cartoons, advertisements, audio and video clips, virtual reality environments, and new forms of information with non-traditional combinations of font size and color, compared to traditional text that only provides print and two-dimensional graphics. This could be a great avenue for our students to explore, especially those students within the special education population, because they tend to gravitate towards photographs, video clips, hearing the text being read out loud. And so that way they can interact with the text and be able to take more away from the text than just simply reading it on a page. The gaps in this literature is that, one, teachers may not be able to provide the technology for the students, and two, once students are manipulating this piece of text via multiple media, they may not be familiar with all of the symbols and all of the formats that are provided on the website. Therefore, they are not getting the overall goal of improving their reading comprehension. My research has led me to focus my study on what specific intervention strategies can be implemented to improve middle school special education students' reading comprehension. My research has led me to propose two questions. One, what are the best interventions for adolescent learners in a special education program to assist with their reading comprehension? And two, what can I do as a teacher to implement these strategies to improve students' reading comprehension? The methodology behind my action research project and how I will answer the two questions that I have proposed will first take place in my 8th grade integrated language arts classroom that will contain my specific special education students who will be a part of my focus group. And the design of how I will answer my questions is exploratory, with a mixed methods research utilizing the questionnaire that I designed, specific interview questions, my focus group questions that I will deliver to my focus group, and finally an observation that I will conduct as I watch my students read in my classroom. The data collection I will use in my action research project consists of 4 sources: a questionnaire, interview questions, focus group questions, and observations. The questionnaire will consist of all students in the classroom will participate and complete the questions about their reading abilities. With the interview questions, the 5 special education students that are in my classroom and will be a part of my focus group will be interviewed, answering the questions about their views on reading and their reading habits. The focus group questions will also consist of the 5 special education students within my focus group, and they will be discussing their interpretations on reading and their reading habits. And finally, observations. All students in my classroom will be observed utilizing a checklist. The questionnaire I designed for my students to take specifically focus on their viewpoint on their reading skills. This allows them to have a voice and be completely honest with how they actually feel they are doing with their reading. I utilized several different types of questions to let my students think about their reading. I used open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, single response items, rating scales, Likert type items, and finally semantic differential type items. The interview questions I have prepared for my specific interviews that I will conduct really lend itself to having a candid conversation with the student, a little bit about themselves, and then digging deeper into the root of why they read, what they are doing during SSR time, and what can they do to be more successful with their reading. The questions are designed and student friendly and do not lead to having a cookie cut answer, but really reflecting on how are the students feeling about their reading situation. When I conduct these interviews, I plan to record all of the interview sessions anonymously so that I can go back and review what each student has said. The purpose of the focus group questions is to really get my 5 special education students that are a part of my focus group to give their opinion and really dig deep and figure out what we really think about reading. These students in my focus group will be very comfortable in our focus group because they know each other very well and they know me very well as their teacher. This session will be recorded so that I can go back and review the feedback that was given. And then ultimately, these focus group questions are to get an action plan. How are we going to proceed with the knowledge that I gain from my students' responses? Observations are a reoccurring task that take place in my classroom all the time because I want to know how my students are doing. But specifically for my action research project, while my students are reading in the classroom, whether that be during SSR time or a specific activity that we are doing in class, I am going to use a structured checklist when I observe them. I will be watching for the enthusiasm level when they are told that it is time to read, the interaction they are having with their book. Are they comfortable with the book? Are they having difficulty with the book? And then finally, are they at ease when they are asked to read aloud? Because reading aloud sometimes makes students very uncomfortable, and some students are right at home. I will specifically use a rating scale of 1 to 3, with 1 indicating frustration with having to read. They just simply don't want to do it. 1 will also represent they are not interacting with the text at all. They do not care to look up a word that they don't know. And then finally, a 1 will also represent difficulty with reading aloud, all the way up to a 3, signifying enthusiasm about reading. They are excited. This is something that brings them joy. They are interacting with the text. If they don't know something, they find a solution. And finally, they have complete ease when reading aloud. There is no hesitation because they have that comfort level and those basic reading skills to back them up as they are asked to read. Once the data has been collected via the questionnaire, interview questions, focus group questions, and my observations of my focus group students, I will analyze and organize that data by considering comparable responses to the open-ended and survey questions in the questionnaire, interview, and focus group. And finally, I will look at the responses to the questions where students respond on the scale of 1 to 3 via my observation. I will specifically create a bar graph to determine the average of how students responded to the questions. Once I have analyzed and organized my comparable responses using the questionnaire, interview questions, and focus group questions, and creating that bar graph based on the observations that I see, I will organize a written description that elucidates in detail the findings based on the student responses. I should be able to learn if students' predetermined thoughts on reading hinder their basic reading skills and overall reading comprehension. Based upon what I find, there are some other questions that I hope to answer. They include, based on the data collected, do students feel they need reading intervention to improve their basic reading skills? And what was realized regarding students' beliefs during the observation? The ethical issues that will be addressed during my action research project will consist of compliance will be demonstrated by asking for student participation by the students' parents, the administration of the school, and Texas Tech University. Consent forms will be developed and signed by the appropriate party, and a written letter from the administration will be constructed for students to be able to participate. During the action research, none of the students participating will sustain any physical harm due to their participation being completed during school hours on school days. All of the data collected via student responses and my observations will be kept anonymous and confidential. And finally, the students participating in the action research will be aware that this is voluntary and they have the right to withdraw and not participate in the study, and it will have no negative effect on them. Disseminating the results is a very crucial and important part of the action research project, because if my two proposed questions are answered, several people can benefit from the research that I find. Specifically, other middle school teachers can benefit from this. Middle school teachers of subject areas other than English and reading can benefit. Administrators, professional development that is provided by the district, and finally, publications that should gear their attention toward middle school students with reading deficits. Reading is a tool that all students need to be successful academically and in their life. So multiple parties can benefit from my action research proving that middle school students cannot be left behind with their basic reading skills. The limitations I foresee for my action research project is that this action research will only be conducted in one, specifically my integrated language arts classroom in the 8th grade. But on a positive note, this type of research could be conducted in other schools, a variety of classroom settings, and at all grade levels in a middle school. In conclusion, the purpose of this action research is to determine what intervention strategies will assist middle school special education students overcome the struggle of reading comprehension. If the intervention strategies that are conducted in this action research prove to enhance reading comprehension, further research could be directed to enhance in other subject areas and everyday life. Do you have any questions or comments regarding my action research proposal?